Good evening and welcome to the Daily Report. It is exactly 9 p.m. here in Nairobi. And from the TV47 headquarters, we have all the news lined up for you. We will be telling you about the most documented protest in this country. But first, the highlights. Tonight, the fate of Linda Mama and Edu Afya programs hangs in the balance in light of the proposed cuts in the Health Ministry's budget allocations.
Who is a top gynecologist, say that 32,000 is not enough for cesarean.
Also tonight, MPs and the largely youthful finance bill protesters clash on the streets of the internet, with the claps and clapbacks served with vicious immediacy.
We are fighting for not just our rights, but their rights as well. The police need to know that they are one of us. We're doing this not just for us, but for them too.
Even as the street protests on the finance bill continues. And former Migori Governor Obado faces the seizure of his property over a corruption case involving billions of shillings during his tenure. Welcome once again to this live broadcast. My name is Hibaq Said. On sign language interpretation tonight is Catherine Simaloi. To start us off with the Finance and National Planning Committee's decision to eliminate contentious clauses from the 2024 Finance Bill, the Budget and Appropriations Committee may be forced to reduce the 2024-2025 budget ceilings by 320 billion shillings to fill in gaps caused by the Finance Bill amendment proposals. However, in order to make up for the loss of some levies, the Kenya Kwanza government is also reportedly planning to raise taxes on petroleum and the export promotion. Micah Gongo tells us more.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ashit Shah.
The two-week-long public participation with government and private entities gave the Finance and National Planning Committee a nod to dislodge a number of contentious clauses, thought to be punitive should the bill be passed as presented in Parliament before. For the purpose of financing the 3.9 trillion shillings budget, the Finance Bill had estimated that it would take in an extra 302 billion shillings. With over 3.5 million cars registered nationwide, the motor vehicle tax alone will have brought in 58 billion shillings for the government annually. Last week, during an engagement with Finance and National Planning Committee, Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen asked the committee to increase the road maintenance levy, which was last reviewed in January 2016, by 7 shillings per litre. Murkomen said the expected revenue from increasing the fuel levy by 7 shillings per litre will amount to 115 billion shillings. The government collects 83 billion shillings and targets to collect an additional 32 billion shillings if the fuel levy is increased. According to Azimio la Umoja members of parliament, the levy, when introduced, will lead to an increase of basic commodities, punishing common mwananchi.
Order, Honorable Speaker, for CPA Bandi, an experienced accountant and a very experienced lawmaker, to say and to inform this House that the report on the Finance and National Planning is amending the road maintenance levy to increase fuel prices. He should know better that an increase in the fuel prices is contained under regulations on the Kenya Roads Board Act. And therefore, introduction of increase of fuel cannot be done on a finance bill.
Mr. Speaker, I'm shocked that the chair of Finance and Planning Committee does not even understand this report. Let us go to page 3, is it 397 or 377? There is the last paragraph, Mr. Speaker, and I want to read it if you allow me. New clause 66. New clause 66, road maintenance levy. The committee notes that the road maintenance levy is charged on all petroleum. I don't want to read all that. It says, the addition of the committee to help raise sufficient funds to maintain and repair roads across the country. The committee recommends an increase of the levy pursuant to Section 3 of the Road Maintenance Levy Fund Act from 18 shillings to 25 shillings per litre on all petroleum products.
According to the National Treasury projections, KRA will not borrow money in order to finance the budget, with an estimated 2.95 billion shillings in ordinary and appropriations in aid.
If you go to KRA, the officers in KRA are merely collecting bribes because taxpayers are refusing to pay tax. They rather keep the tax, and when officers of KRA go, they bribe them.
Additionally, the committee suggests that a decrease in the State Department's next exchequer allocation could occur in tandem with the anticipated rise in local appropriations in aid for roads. Mike Kagwango, TV 47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Mike. The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, ODPC, today made a cautionary statement to Kenyans, urging them to refrain from sharing personal information, pointing out that it infringes on individual rights to privacy. This comes at a time when members of parliament have raised concerns about their phone numbers and private data being leaked on social media. Anthony Mwangi with that story.
Last weekend saw an outrage on social media by Kenyans on X, commonly known as KOX, regarding a number of clauses in the Finance Bill 2024 which were argued to be oppressive to the common mwananchi. An outburst that led to private information belonging to members of parliament being leaked on social media, including their personal phone numbers as well as those to their closest family. A way of applying pressure on the leaders to vote against the bill or to shame them for showing support for it, the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner in a statement today stated, and I quote, "This practice has been happening without the affected citizens' consent, contrary to the provisions of Article 31 of the Constitution of Kenya. The Data Protection Act 2019 and its attendant regulations. In view of the foregoing, the office wishes to advise members of public to refrain from further sharing of personal information which infringes on individual rights to privacy." Among the most recently affected were police officers who also found themselves on the wrong side of KOX, who called them out for allegedly harassing Kenyans who had taken to the streets on Tuesday to protest against the finance bill. The finance bill, which also seeks to allow the KRA unfettered access to sensitive personal information held by data controllers and processors such as telecoms and banks, has been discouraged by data protection organizations, the Data Privacy and Governance Society of Kenya, submitting a memorandum to Parliament stating that, and I quote, "In response to the call for comments on the Finance Bill 2024, we wish to submit that Clause 63, which proposes to amend Section 51 of the Data Protection Act, should be deleted and not included in the consequential amendments from the Finance Bill 2024. Even as this continues, Kenyans remain unshaken as private information continues to make rounds on social media, with a looming heated protest against the Finance Bill being slated for Thursday. Mwangi Anthony, TV 47.
Thank you, Anthony. On the same note, Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Alfred Mutua has criticized yesterday's protests led by Generation Z in Nairobi. Alleging they lack a good understanding of the finance bill, Mutua suggests there are alternative ways to present their views. Meanwhile, during today's deliberations on the bill in the National Assembly, some MPs expressed mixed feelings about the protests, as Ruga Eval now tells us.
In Kenya, you'll be hurt. And if you saw, even though the police were behaving, they were very, they were not beating our young people. I saw quite a number of beautiful young girls demonstrating. Some were arrested because they were not obeying where they were told to be. At the same time, they were trying to cause some kind of chaos, kidogo.
Kitui South MP Rachel Nyamai is among the members of parliament who had differing views from other MPs regarding the protest staged yesterday by Generation Z.
The girl told me that she was not in the street concerning the bill, that she was doing TikTok, Honorable Speaker, and she was swinging.
Views that have since made her a target of a wave of online abuse or trolling.
Order. The Bible says in the Can you withdraw that?
It's
there
in
are
the
no
book,
fools in this house.
in the book of Proverbs 26. The Bible says,
Even as Data Protection Agency head Immaculate Kasait warns the netizens against breaching data protection laws by exposing online personal data belonging to the leaders they disagree with. However, conflicting sentiments bounce back and forth within Parliament concerning this protest.
Mheshimiwa Spika, Wakenya wamemakinika, ukiwaona wanaingia barabarani wenyewe bila baba, jua kuna shida.
Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza niwapatie kongole wa Kenya kwa kusimama kidete na kuweka kilio cha haki katika mswada huu wa fedha.
Raises the issue. Who advises this government? Who are the real advisors? In terms of economics, in terms of finance management, leave alone politics. Politics we can deal with later. But who advises this government? Because it seems to make mistake after mistake. Mistake after mistake. Mistake after mistake.
Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah echoing similar sentiments in condemning Gen Z's efforts to criticize the 2024 financial bill.
Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to speak to the young people in the streets. The young people, Honorable Speaker, who have been mobilized in colleges and universities around our country to send members messages of rejecting this finance bill. This finance bill is about protecting yourselves as our children.
In a digital age where voices unite across screens, Kenyans, particularly the passionate Gen Zs, took to the virtual street to protest the controversial financial bill. However, their collective efforts didn't stop online. They amplified their voices offline, organizing demonstrations across major cities, demanding lawmakers to listen to their people's concerns, an exercise that is set to continue until their views on the financial bill are heard and implemented with unity and determination. Gen Zs and allies prove that in the digital age, change isn't just a click away, it's a movement. Ruga Eval, TV47.
Thank you, Ruga. And as TV47, the Gen Z channel will be bringing you all that will be happening on ground. Moving on, President William Ruto has broken his silence following the demonstrations over the contentious finance bill. Ruto, who was speaking in Kericho County, said Kenyans are free to protest. These sentiments come as Mbeere North Member of Parliament Geoffrey Ruku pushes for a law that will impose a jail term to Kenyans who participate in demonstrations that have not been permitted by the state. The bill will see demonstrators face up to 1 year in prison or a 100,000 shilling fine or both. George Maringa with the details.
As Kenyans prepare for another round of protests against the contentious Finance Bill 2024-2025 on Thursday, President William Ruto has finally broken his silence.
And civil society is free to do what they want to do. We are a democratic country. We have no problem. Those who want to demonstrate, they can demonstrate. It is their right. No problem. But the decisions have to be made by institutions. We will make decisions as the executive. We will take it to the legislature. People of Kenya will speak to it through public participation. Others will go and subject it to court processes. That is how a democracy works.
The head of state, who was speaking in Ainamoi, Kericho County, was quick to state his position on the demonstrations, which have made headlines far and wide.
And I am a great believer in a democracy. And I will make sure that Kenya continues to be a robust democracy, where people speak their mind, and we all assist in taking the country where we all want it to be. Even as we transit the country from, the quicksand of debt to the solid foundation of taxes and domestically mobilized resources, we have to do it in a manner that our institutions of governance play a part and are part of it.
For the better part of Wednesday, members of parliament debated on the bill, with each side maintaining their stand on proposals and amendments. On this one, President Ruto was quick to enumerate the roles of institutions.
We make proposals as the executive. The legislature interrogates those proposals. They also, because it's a requirement of the Constitution, they take it for public participation. The people of Kenya inform, because the decision we make as government or as the executive are not final, because the people of Kenya ultimately must speak to every program, every tax that we raise, every policy that we put in place. The people of Kenya must speak to it so that it gives it legitimacy.
And whereas the head of state did not fail to pronounce his stand as well, Mbeere North Member of Parliament Geoffrey Ruto has proposed the Assembly and Demonstration Bill 2024 that seeks to have the state regulate public demonstrations and protests. If approved, the bill will have far-reaching consequences on organizations and individual members of the public who organize public protests and gatherings. According to the provisions of the bill, the regulating officer or police will give several conditions without which the planned protest cannot be permitted. Will the proposed Assembly and Demonstration Bill 2024 see the light of day? Time will tell. George Maringa, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you so much for that, George. And on the same note, the Treasury has written to the Clerk of the National Assembly rationalizing the budget, and this comes as the Executive Office of the President gets or is given 451 million, while State House gets 500 million. Security has 2 billion shillings, NGCDF 15 billion shillings, GAF at 1.5 billion, medical interns 3.7 billion, medical equipment services at 1 billion, and of course there is a defer for confirmation of interns to PNP, that is permanent and pensionable, and hiring of JSS at 18.9 billion, cash transfers at 5.5 billion, and the ongoing road construction projects at 15.1 billion. This as of course, school feeding program gets 1.8 billion, last mile connectivity 14.5 billion, and that's the constituencies program, while street lighting is at 4.7 billion. News just in, and of course, we will be delving into that in our conversation later on. Now, following their counterparts in Nairobi, protesters converged in Mombasa Wednesday to demonstrate against the finance bill. The protests were declared illegal by the Mombasa Central Police OCS, who declared the protests illegal, denying that he had signed a letter authorizing the protests. Our reporter Kisewa Emory with the details.
Reject, not amend! Reject, not amend!
The word on the street is
not amend! Reject, not amend! Reject!
Police and protesters engaged in running battles, with the protesters demanding for the immediate rejection of the contentious bill.
Mr. President, we are frustrated, and as Kenyans and as Gen Z na kama watoto wadogo tuko frustrated, and we are saying no to that finance bill. No.
The good thing is, Ruto feels the pain. We are the people who are feeling the pain. We will not relent until it's rejected. We will not buy any story until it's over.
Protesters braved the rain to express their displeasure with the state, their sentiments similar to their counterparts in the capital city.
Sisi ni wakazi wa Mombasa. We are the youth of the Mombasa. Watu wa Nairobi walitupigania jana, leo ni sisi. Tunapigania kila mtu.
Wametushia tear gas tukiwa kwa shule, unaona kama hapa hivi ni Coast Girls. Ukiangalia ni Coast Girls High School, na tulikuwa literally tumepiga magoti tukirushiwa tukirushiwa tear gas. Na the audacity of these people, they don't understand, number one, that this is a learning area, this is a residential area. Watu wanakaa hapa, kuna misikiti hapo, shule iko hapa, residential areas ziko pale.
We're here fighting for not just our rights, but their rights as well. The police need to know that they are one of us. We're doing this not just for us, but for them too. So I don't understand why they would launch tear gas canisters on us.
In Mombasa, however, there was time for dialogue, with the Mombasa Central Police OCS asking the protesters to go home, asserting that he did not give the green light for protests to happen in the city.
I am the OCS na sina document. Sina hiyo barua mnasema mlituma. Tunaelewana? Kwa hivyo mimi nasema maandamano hakuna, tafadhali. Let us be peaceful. Mkitaka maandamano muandike barua ikuje kwa ofisi. Tunaelewana pamoja? So kama OCS sina barua yenu.
Unsurprisingly, the protesters, most of whom were the youth, did not go home when asked. and it took a Kenyan protest staple, tear gas, to disperse them. Eyes are now firmly on tomorrow's planned protests, which are set for Nairobi, Nanyuki, Eldoret and Kisumu, with many pondering as to how the authorities will respond to them. Kisewa Emory, TV47.
Thank you, Emory. The High Court has granted the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission the go-ahead to seize and sell by public auction 8 prime plot properties and 2 high-end motor vehicles belonging to former Migori Governor Okoth Obado and associates, with confirmation of them being proceeds of corruption and unexplained wealth. Moving on, Magistrate Monica Kivuti died due to excessive bleeding resulting from 5 gunshot wounds. Government pathologist Dr. Johansen Odwor, who conducted an autopsy examination on Kivuti's body, says the principal magistrate's death was occasioned by complications from the bullets. The most affected area was the pelvic bone. And as Franklin Wala reports, an autopsy conducted on the former OCS who killed the magistrate confirmed the deceased died due to 1 gunshot wound on the head. Both bodies have been preserved awaiting burial arrangements.
At the Leaf Funeral Home in Nairobi, where government pathologist Dr. Johansen Odwor conducted an autopsy examination on the body of the late NACADA magistrate, Monica Kivuti. Dr. Johansen Odwor revealing that the late principal magistrate Honorable Kivuti died due to complications occasioned by 5 gunshot wounds from a small caliber weapon believed to be a pistol. These gunshots caused serious injuries and excessive loss of blood from her body, with the most affected part being the pelvic bone. The completion of the autopsy allows her mourning family to finalize burial preparations. The late judicial officer was shot by an armed senior police officer during a live court proceeding within Makadara Law Courts on Thursday last week. Meanwhile, a similar exercise took place at the Chiromo Funeral Home, where Samson Kipchirchir Kipruto's body had been preserved. After the exercise, pathologist Grace Midigo confirmed the former Londiani OCS suffered 1 fatal gunshot wound to the head. The bullet was from a distance and fired from a low-caliber weapon. Investigators have also revealed that the former OCS left the post at Londiani police station armed with this Jericho pistol, 5 rounds of ammunition and a sum of 93,000 shillings, which had been collected as cash bail from various offenders. The death of the principal magistrate and the tragic circumstances of her shooting has seen a nationwide uproar by the entire criminal justice system, triggering a clarion call to enhance security within all judicial offices and the security of judicial officers. Honorable Monica Kivuti leaves behind a young child and a husband. On the other hand, her killer, Chief Inspector Samson Kipruto, who was neutralized after shooting the magistrate, leaves behind a wife who is a senior police officer and 3 children. Kipruto shot the magistrate after a ruling in a case of obtaining involving his alleged girlfriend and a sum of 2.9 million shillings. Franklin Wala, TV47.
Now, a private sector alliance that brings together different stakeholders from different sectors has called on the government to fine-tune the Finance Bill 2024 that seeks to raise taxes on different commodities. The association argues that the high cost of energy and a lack of clear policy to lower the cost of production threatens to increase the price of commodities in the market. If this is not well checked, then it threatens to scare away investors to other countries. Meanwhile, the Azimio la Umoja coalition, led by Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi, urged Kenyans to reject the 2024 finance bill in its entirety. Wandayi says even after the amendment of the 2024 bill, there is nothing to smile about, since Kenyans will continue to be taxed if the bill will be passed.
We need to work on our global competitiveness. It's a shame that as we speak today, Kenya's manufacturing contribution to GDP is 7.2%. I know the Kenya Association of Manufacturers have said that they are on track to turning that 7.2% manufacturing contribution to 20% by 2030. But it cannot happen just miraculously. There's got to be focused energy put towards how do we grow the manufacturing sector, because they're going to grow real jobs, and the formal sector employment, bulk of it is in the manufacturing sector. So we can only grow the manufacturing sector if we actually make sure that we are competitive, globally competitive.
So the proposed fuel level will certainly add on to the cost of fuel, which then means that we are adding on to the cost of living and the cost of doing business. The other thing that we must also contend with is that, and this is a good thing, that we have an electrical mobility policy that is in the final stages of development. In terms of electrical power, the cost of electrical power, obviously we all know, compared to other countries in the region, is higher. One of the key things when we look at electrical power is not only the cost but also reliability. If you had inexpensive power but it is not reliable, then you have to put in additional measures, key amongst them backup systems, which cost money. We note that there has been some improvement in terms of reliability, but I think there's a lot more that needs to be done to improve on that reliability, and more importantly, a lot more needs to be done to reduce the loss of electrical power.
We will therefore push for further changes to the bill and turn it into a document for growth and not stagnation. For instance, we demand that the export promotion levy of 10% on clinkers for manufacture of cement is a tool for stagnation. It is meant to stifle competition in a particular sector with a view to protecting a particular investor in a specific sector.
Now, the National Authority for the Campaign Against Alcohol and Drug Abuse is seeking for increased resource allocation and support to fully implement their mandate as they launch their Strategic Plan 2023-2027. The authority noted they are in need of about 12.2 billion in the fight against alcohol and drug abuse in the country.
The fight against alcohol and drug abuse in the country continues in earnest, with NACADA coming up with a strategic plan that aims at sustaining the momentum in this fight.
The vices have affected all sectors within the development agenda, and more significantly, it has affected the very critical population of our country.
Despite the various campaigns, the youth remain the most affected. Alcohol mentioned as the most abused substance, whose average year for initiation is 16 years.
We can stem this in our strategic plan. We can come up with programs to stem this and make sure that this initiation, ages and so on are way beyond, let's say, in the 20s and so on. It can help this fight against alcohol drug abuse.
The problem is big. The drug and alcohol abuse in the country is a major challenge. And I want to call upon all the stakeholders. While NACADA is the focal point, we can't win this war alone. We need everybody on board.
However, this ambitious plan requires about 12.2 billion in implementing it, hence the call for more resources.
We expect to be getting about 1.5 billion. This is from the exchequer. But when we work out our programs, as per our strategic plan, chief guest, we realized that we require 12.2 billion Kenya shillings, at least, to make an impact when we look at our strategic plan.
And so, with a plan to see the vision of a nation free from alcohol and drug abuse on, government and stakeholders have been urged to create a conducive environment for the success of the plans. Sheila Chelangat for TV 47.
Thank you, Sheila, for that report. And a small correction on our story on Gen Zs. The Cabinet Secretary Alfred Mutua is not Foreign Affairs, he's Tourism. Now we go for a very short break. We'll be right back with more news.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that, so when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO. And the rest of...
What point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that, inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing
Welcome back. With only 11 days left before Kenyans fully transition from the National Health Insurance Fund, NHIF, to the Social Health Authority, millions of expectant mothers who rely on the Linda Mama cover have been thrown into a state of uncertainty as the fate of the medical cover in the new Social Health Authority remains unknown. Our health and science reporter Elizabeth Atieno now explores.
In the 2024-2025 financial year budget, the health sector was allocated a total of 127 billion Kenya shillings, a decrease from the 146 billion Kenya shillings allocated in the 2023-2024 financial year. Free maternity health is now expected to receive 2 billion Kenya shillings, which is a drop from the 4 billion Kenya shillings estimated by the Ministry of Health.
The only thing that makes a difference is that when I went to deliver my last born baby in Aga Khan, I was given my private room. And I remember there was even music for me. You know? Those are the things that make healthcare expensive.
This being a clear indication that the Linda Mama program is projected to face a serious financial setback, which puts the lives of millions of children at risk.
Cover maternity and child health services, and here we cover the antenatal and postnatal services.
So far, 65 to 70% of deliveries in Kenya take place through Linda Mama, with over 1.1 million mothers registering for the program each year. However, the Social Health Authority does not clearly stipulate the place of Linda Mama and how it will be funded, as the government has slashed the budgetary allocation on the same.
When we were engaging our legislators, one of them, who is a top gynecologist, said that 32,000 is not enough for cesarean. Yet, under NHIF, cesarean has been how much? 17,000, isn't it?
And that's not all. In January this year, Health CS Susan Akumicha said the Edu Afya will be scrapped and learners will now be covered alongside their households in the primary healthcare fund, which is also under the Social Health Authority. This is after 4.3 billion Kenya shillings was lost in the Edu Afya scheme that covers treatment for secondary school learners. The question that now lingers among many is, what is the fate of learners who depend on Edu Afya scheme for medication? Linda Mama and Edu Afya are some of the benefits Kenyans might risk not enjoying in the new Social Health Authority if all factors remain constant. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Clinical officers in Uasin Gishu County earlier today took to the streets of Eldoret to demonstrate, joining an ongoing nationwide clinical officers strike. The officers have now vowed not to resume work unless their grievances are heard and a consensus is reached. Led by the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers Chair Peterson Washira, the officers claim that the national government and the Ministry of Health have ignored their demands and grievances amid the disruptions in most health facilities in the country. The union now wants the government, through the Ministry of Health, to address their demands, among them being the payment of the universal healthcare coverage interns and the signing of the new CBA.
Walituambia ya kwamba tunatoka kutoka universal health coverage tunaenda kwa universal health care ambayo inamaanisha wangehakikisha huduma ni bora zaidi. Lakini yale mambo ambayo wanatenda inaenda kinyume na vile. Wakati wanaongezea pesa zao za kwenda nje, wakati wanaongeza pesa za chai na mandazi, tunaona wamekata bilioni 11 kutoka kwa bajeti ya afya.
Until they pay our interns as it is required, as it has been approved by the Public Service Commission, we shall continue being on strike until they are able to agree and sign our CBA as we demanded on our collective bargain. On our strike notice. Clinical officers are willing to continue being on strike.
Risk allowance, you are talking of Maina Humincha. I can tell you that we don't evaluate the risk we get with money.
Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was among hundreds of leaders who convened in Pretoria, South Africa for the inauguration ceremony of His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa. This is after he was re-elected for his second term at the first sitting of the National Assembly on Saturday, June the 15th of this year. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua delivered a special congratulatory message to President Ramaphosa and the people of South Africa on behalf of President William Ruto. Deputy President also was accompanied by Senators Lenku Seki of Kajiado County and Karungo Thangwa of Kiambu County.